Hello people, it is Tyler, and seeing as I can't bother to write my workout yet, I'm doing a little video to showcase the conventions of horror film, and it is taking place in my kitchen, but like from time to time we're going to move around as we talk about like different concepts of horror, you get me? But stay tuned, innit? So both Jeepers Creepers films are a monster horror, and basically what monster horror is, it's a horror film that contains, say, an oversized character or being, such as a demon or something like that, and they basically occur through a natural experience, or usually through, say, something like religion, or like something through evilness, or say a scientific experiment gone wrong. That's how most monster themes kind of start. And the whole kind of series originated from Japan, and with the introduction of horrors such as King Kong and Godzilla. And in Japan, I believe they call them Kujin. I don't know if my pronunciation is right, but it's something along them lines. And that's what they call the whole oversized creature thing. As you most probably thinking, like monster horrors need a lot of budgeting, because obviously there's a lot of special effects and like loads of makeup and stuff to achieve different effects. For example, Jeepers Creepers had a budget of 17 million. But it opened in 3,124 theatres, and it made its money back, and it made a domestic gross of $35 million, but that's US currency. So yeah, and they made a worldwide gross of $63 million. So they made back their money, but overall, to make us monster horror in particular, it's very expensive, because there's a lot of like effects that you have to go through, a lot of procedures and stuff like that. Okay, so that's enough of the whole Jeepers Creepers stuff. We're going to move on to a different film now, and we're going to have the same concept. So that obviously if there's a little drum roll here, then I would have a little drum roll, but unfortunately we're in my kitchen and there's no drums around. So in around 3 seconds, yeah, the next clip of this next horror film should show up. So that right there was a clip from the famous film The Ring. Unfortunately, it was the American version. I didn't have clips of the original version, the Japanese version. And what I've realised is that the films such as The Ring, The Grudge, they're classified as J-horrors, but when they're remade to, say, by American audience, they're classified as psychological thrillers. So if anyone noticed that, then you noticed it. But yeah, that's what the Americans renamed it, because obviously it's not a Japanese horror if it's been reinvented by Americans. And there's a lot of Japanese films that have obviously been remade to be targeted at American audiences, such as The Grudge, obviously, The Ring, and both The Ring 1, 2, and Grudge 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, as I said before, that J-horrors, when they're remade by Americans, turn into psychological or supernatural horrors. So just for this purpose, I'm going to talk about supernatural psychological horrors and J-horrors. So we're going to first start off by talking about J-horrors. So a common feature of all J-horrors is the antagonist, or the villain, or the bad guy basically, and they are usually what we call a Yuri, and a Yuri is someone who looks like this. And I have to say, like, that's one of the scariest stuff I've ever seen. But yeah, a Yuri usually has the characteristics of Yuri to be very pale and have long hair, as the image you just saw right there of the little girl from The Ring. However, when they are remade by Americans in psychological thrillers, or when they are remade basically, they share the same concepts, but they're not really as pale. They still have the long hair, and they're not really Japanese women or girls playing the part. In J-horrors as well, the antagonist is usually seen to be wearing all white, a bit like me at the moment, but I'm not a villain. And yeah, they seem to be wearing all white, and it is because white in Japan represents death, whereas over in America, or in European countries, or over here, we associate the kind of black with death, but in Japan, and that is the opposite way around, so hence why they are wearing all white. However, in The Ring, the American Ring, they still portray the villain, or the Yuri character, to be wearing white, despite the fact that black represents death, to give the character a slight bit of innocence, because a Yuri is usually played by a child, and that white makes him seem a bit innocent, which kind of plays with the character. in J horrors in particular, you don't really see a lot of contact or violence. It's usually suggested. So, for example, if someone's being stabbed, you don't usually see them being stabbed. Whereas, say when The Ring was made to remade by Americans, they like reinstated that violence. There's a lot more violence than than a Japanese one where violence is implied. What I've noticed most about J horrors is their use of music. They use like airy music unlike any other film to build suspense and tension, and like just to make the viewer feel scared. It's often sounds like simple sounds such as TVs making noises, doors being shut, and they play on these effects like really well, especially in J horrors specifically. So as I said before, when J horrors are remade by Americans, they're classified as psychological horrors, or psychological or supernatural horrors, and we're going to be talking a bit about that now. And films that come under this category are films such as The Omen, Exorcist, Shining, Hellraiser, etc. But what you may notice about all these films is they have a religious, there's a religious theme going on there, and that religion usually has a huge impact on the film. For example, people see ghosts, and in Exorcism it's all about demons controlling the body. And the reason why psychological thrillers are so successful is because there's an element of realism to them. And although it talks about demons and not everyone believes that and everything like that, but there's always something that attracts us to religion, and it's that realism that makes the film kind of scary, and that's why it's growing very fast. Like, for example, we've got films like Paranormal Activity and Insidious.